I can't keep doing this, Lila said, tapping her nails against the counter. You always disappoint me. I nodded like I was taking notes, because that's what I do for a living. I audit systems. I document failures. I find patterns people swear aren't there. She exhaled hard. My ex would never disappoint me like this. It landed like a slap that didn't leave a mark. Those are the worst kinds. You can't prove them later. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her to take it back. I didn't give her the pleasure of seeing me fall apart. Then maybe you married the wrong person, I said. Her eyes narrowed, the way they did when she was about to turn a conversation into a trial and make me the defendant. I watched her go pale before adding, "Lucky for you, I can fix that mistake." I reached for my phone on the counter. My thumbprint opened it in a smooth, practiced motion. Not magic, muscle memory. I didn't even look at the screen as I tapped the contact I hadn't called in years. When she realized whose number was on my screen, everything changed. "Evan," she said, sharp now. "Why are you calling Travis?" I held the phone up so she could see the name, the way you show a receipt to someone who's pretending they didn't see the price. The line rang once. Her hand shot out, but she stopped herself. Lila never grabbed. Lila persuaded. Lila managed. Lila spun. "Don't," she said, softer. "That's not necessary." Second ring. "You said he'd never disappoint you," I replied. "I figured I'd ask him what I'm doing wrong." Third ring. Her throat bobbed. I saw it. I saw everything. That was my problem. I saw, and I kept pretending sight wasn't knowledge. The call went to voicemail. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I ended it and set the phone down like it was a chess piece, and I'd just made a move she didn't expect. Lila stared at me like I'd pulled the floor away. "What is this? Some kind of stunt?" "No," I said. "It's a fact check." She laughed once, too loud. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, you just compared me to a ghost and flinched when I tried to talk to it." Her mouth opened, then closed. She recalculated. I knew that look. I'd seen it in conference rooms when executives realized the numbers weren't going to lie for them. Lila's whole life was numbers that lied if you presented them right. "I'm tired," she said, reaching for her purse like it was a shield. "I don't want to do this tonight." "Okay," I replied. "We don't have to." She blinked, thrown off by my compliance. Lila liked fights, because fights meant attention, and attention meant she still mattered. Silence scared her. Silence meant you'd already made up your mind. She walked down the hallway, heels clicking. Halfway to the bedroom, she paused. "You don't get to embarrass me," she said over her shoulder. I almost laughed. Embarrass her. Like embarrassment was something I did to her, not something she kept in her pocket for emergencies. "I won't," I said. "I'm done performing." When the bedroom door shut, the house settled into itself. Pipes cooled, the fridge hummed, and in that quiet, a thought crawled out of the dark and sat beside me. If she was that afraid of a phone call, it wasn't the ex she was afraid of. It was the timeline. I stood there a long time, looking at the wine glass. Then I walked into my office and opened a fresh file on my laptop. I titled it, Lila, Patterns, and the first entry was simple. 12:14 a.m. She flinched at a name. People think affairs are about passion. That's what movies sell. In real life, they're about logistics. The next morning, Lila moved through the house like nothing happened. She made coffee. She fed the cat. She kissed my cheek on the way out like she was stamping a letter. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm listening," I replied. She smiled like that was a compliment. "Good. I have a long day." Lila worked in communications at a regional hospital network, the kind of job where you speak in clean sentences and throw away the mess behind them. Her calendar lived on her phone, her excuses lived in her mouth. The truth lived in everything else. I didn't go hunting for it. I just stopped looking away. At 8:02, she left. At 8:17, she texted, "Back-to-back meetings. Might grab dinner after with the team." At 8:20, she added a heart emoji, like you can seal a lie with sugar. I went to my own work, risk auditing for a freight company with enough moving parts to hide a body and still make delivery. I sat in a cube and listened to people explain why a missing pallet wasn't their fault. Around noon, my boss asked if I could sit in on vendor due diligence for a wellness contract. New vendor, new money. I said yes because saying yes is how you stay employed, and I liked being employed. On the drive home that evening, I passed a billboard for a gym called Iron House. A smiling guy with perfect teeth held up a shaker cup like it was a trophy. I didn't know him yet, but I noticed the same smile later on Lila's Instagram story, reflected in a restaurant window behind her. A group photo. "Team dinner," the caption said. Her face was turned just enough that it looked candid, like she wasn't trying, like she wasn't posing for someone. The way her hand rested on the edge of the table told me she was sitting next to a man, not a woman, not a team. Her wrist angle said it. The space said it. The small things. At home, she talked fast. Too fast. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "We had to go over the donor luncheon schedule. It's chaos." "Sounds like it," I replied, watching her set her phone screen down on the counter. She washed her hands like she'd touched something dirty. Then she leaned on the island and looked at me like I was a chore. "You know what I miss?" she said. "Someone who makes things feel easy." There it was again, comparison as a weapon. I kept my face calm. "What do you want from me, Lila?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Effort, ambition, something. Ambition." I thought about my last 6 months. Overtime, night calls, a promotion request that got "we'll circle back" 3 times. I thought about our mortgage, our insurance, the vacations she posted about like they were hers, like I didn't pay the plane tickets. "I'm going to shower," she said, already walking away. I waited until the water ran. Then I did what any sane person does when they realize they've been living in someone else's story. I opened my bank app. Nothing illegal, nothing invasive. Our accounts were joint. Our bills were shared. Our life was a spreadsheet, whether she liked it or not. And there it was. 2 charges from a downtown boutique hotel. Small amounts like deposits. Like someone testing the water. I wrote them down in my file. Dates, times, amounts. Patterns don't care about your feelings. Patterns just exist. That night in bed, she rolled away from me and held her phone close to her chest, like it was a secret child. I stared at the ceiling and thought about how fear works, how it makes you protect the wrong things. Lila wasn't protecting our marriage. She was protecting her image of herself inside the marriage. At 2:11 a.m., she got up. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The floorboard by the hallway always squeaked. It squeaked now. Then the bathroom light clicked on, then the click of a lock. I added another entry. 2:11 a.m. She locks a door inside a house we both pay for, and the map in my head got clearer. By the 3rd day, I stopped asking myself if I was paranoid. Paranoia is when there's no proof and you still believe. What I had was proof that hadn't finished introducing itself yet. Lila started humming again. It's strange what people do when they think they're winning. She'd hum while she poured cereal, while she chose outfits, while she scrolled her phone with her thumb moving too fast. On Thursday, she told me, "We have a charity planning meeting after work. Could run late." She said it with her back to me, like she couldn't risk watching my reaction. That's how you know the script matters more than the audience. "Okay," I replied. "Want me to make you something for later?" She turned, surprised. "No, it's fine." When she left, she forgot her badge on the hook by the door. not the hospital badge. The gym fob she'd started carrying for wellness. A black plastic circle with Iron House stamped on it. I held it in my hand, feeling the warm imprint of her routine. My wife had added a new key to her life and never thought to explain it. I put it back. I wasn't here to steal. I was here to see. After work, I didn't follow her. I drove to the same part of town she kept drifting toward because my vendor due diligence meeting was the next day and I wanted a coffee before I went home. That's the thing about truth. If you leave enough doors open, it walks through one without you forcing it. Downtown was dense with restaurants and valet stands and people who looked like they'd never worried about a missed payment. I parked in a garage 2 blocks from the boutique hotel listed on our statements. The lobby lights glowed through tall windows like a promise. I told myself I was just checking something. A sanity check. A reality check. The kind of check you write when you need to know what you can afford. The garage smelled like hot rubber and old rain. I walked down to the first level, then the second, then stopped. Because Lila's car was there. Same dent on the rear bumper from the shopping cart she blamed on city life. Same vanity plate frame that said live, laugh, love like a warning. My heart didn't race. It did something worse. It slowed like my body was conserving energy for a long job. I didn't go closer. I didn't take pictures. I didn't do anything that would turn me into a man I didn't recognize. I took out my phone and opened my notes. 6:43 p.m. Car in garage, boutique hotel. Then I stood there and listened. The garage had a sound to it. Distant doors, muffled laughter, a car alarm chirp, and somewhere above an elevator ding. I looked toward the stairwell door. It had a little window in it, fogged from years of hands pushing on it. Through the glass I saw movement, a shadow, then another. I stepped back behind a concrete pillar, not because I was playing spy, because if she saw me, she'd rewrite everything, and I needed the story to stay honest. The stairwell door opened. Lila came out first, hair down, jacket off, not her work face, her weekend face. Then the man behind her, tall, broad shoulders, the kind of guy who wore confidence like deodorant and probably refreshed it in the mirror. He touched her lower back like he belonged there. Lila laughed, head tipping back, the sound free in a way I hadn't heard in months. She looked younger beside him, not because she was happier, because she was pretending she didn't have consequences. They walked toward the elevator, talking close, their words lost in the garage echo. Before the elevator doors closed, he kissed her, quick, practiced, like it was nothing. The doors slid shut, and I realized something that made my mouth go dry. They weren't hiding in the shadows. They weren't scared. They acted like the world was theirs and everyone else was furniture. I left the garage before my anger could choose a direction. Outside, the air was cold enough to feel like a slap. I sat in my car and stared at the hotel windows. The lobby had a small Christmas tree already up, lights blinking. People in coats and scarves walked in holding hands. I could have gone in. I could have marched up to the desk and asked for her name like a man in a daytime TV episode. I could have made a scene and given her a story where she was the victim of my control issues. I didn't. Instead, I started my engine and drove home. Because I'd seen enough to stop asking questions. Now I needed outcomes. At 7:12, my phone buzzed. Lila. Running late. Donor meeting turned into dinner. Don't wait up. I stared at the heart. Then I typed back a single word. Me. Okay. And that was the moment the game changed. Not because I had proof, because I stopped needing her to confess. Confessions are for people who still want to fix things. I wanted to finish them. At home, I opened my laptop. I searched Iron House gym owner and scrolled until I found the same smiling man from the billboard. Name, Graham Pierce. Then I searched Graham Pierce lawsuit because auditors have ugly hobbies, and the screen filled with little clues. A dispute with a former business partner, a lien filed and released, a handful of bad reviews buried under glossy marketing. Nothing criminal, nothing movie-worthy, just enough to tell me his world depended on people believing he was untouchable. I wrote his name in my file, Graham Pierce, image-based assets, and I slept like someone who'd stopped begging the dark to be kind. The next day, I did vendor due diligence like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. The wellness contract pitch was scheduled for Monday. Iron House was one of 3 finalists. That meant I'd be sitting across a table from Graham Pierce while my wife pretended she didn't know him outside of community partnerships. I spent Friday doing what I always did when something felt wrong. I tightened the frame. I pulled public filings. I checked insurance certificates. I confirmed addresses. Everything was normal. Normal on paper is where bad decisions go to hide. That night, Lila came home at 9:38, smelling like citrus and cold air. "You're working late again tomorrow," she said like she was assigning me a shift. "Yeah," I replied. "Quarter close." "Of course," she said with a sigh that meant, "Of course you have obligations that don't involve me." She showered, then climbed into bed and turned her phone face down again. I watched the muscles in her jaw work while she read something she didn't want to share. Saturday morning, she announced, "I'm meeting a friend for coffee." "Who?" I asked, gentle. She blinked. "Why does it matter?" "Just asking," I said. "I like knowing the shape of my own weekend." She rolled her eyes. "You're being weird lately." I almost laughed. Weird, the word people use when you stop cooperating with their story. "Have fun," I said. She left in leggings and a coat, hair styled in that careless, careful way. And this time I did follow. Not like a creep, not tailgating, not stalking. I drove my normal errands route. I let her get ahead. I stopped when she stopped, 2 cars back, then parked down the street and walked like I belonged there. Lila didn't go to a coffee shop. She went to the boutique hotel again. She walked in like she'd checked in before. Because she had. I stood across the street in the shadow of a closed bookstore and watched her disappear through the glass doors. My hands were steady. My stomach wasn't. I waited 10 minutes. Then I crossed and walked into the lobby. The heat inside smelled like cedar and espresso. Soft music played. A couple sat on a leather couch with their luggage, talking about brunch like nothing terrible had ever happened to anyone. The front desk was staffed by a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a name tag that said, Renee. I didn't go up to her like a husband on the verge. I went up like a guy who'd lost something. "Hi," I said. "Quick question. I think my wife left her scarf here last week. It's black, kind of." Renee's eyes flicked to my ring, then to my face. She had the look of someone who'd seen enough to know when she was being asked to participate. "I can check lost and found," she said, polite. "What name would it be under?" I paused just long enough to be human. Lila Carter. Renee's expression didn't change much, but something in her posture did. Like she'd just recognized a song she hated. She typed on her keyboard. The keys clicked, soft in the lobby hush. "I don't see a scarf," she said. "Okay," I replied, letting disappointment sit on my face like a mask. "That's on me. She said she might have dropped it when we were here." Renee's fingers stopped. She looked up. There are 2 kinds of service workers, the ones who don't care and the ones who care too much because they've been burned by caring. Renee was the second kind. And second kinds sometimes slip. "We have a couples package going on," she said, and her voice went even smoother. "A lot of people come through for that." "Couples," I repeated, like the word had weight. Renee glanced toward the seating area, then back to me. Not dramatic, not conspiratorial, just tired. "If you're looking for something from last week," she said, "it would have been attached to the room reservation." My pulse ticked. "Sure." She hesitated, then leaned forward a fraction. "Mr. Carter," she said softly. My skin tightened. Lila's last name wasn't Carter anymore. It hadn't been for 7 years, but Renee had just called me that, like it was the truth she knew. I stared at her. I'm sorry? Renee's eyes went down to the screen, then up to me again. And in that moment, I understood the mundane truth. Lila wasn't even using her married name. She was checking in here under her maiden name, the name she shared with her ex. Not because she was careless, because she thought it was clever, because she thought it made her invisible. Renee cleared her throat. Sometimes people keep old names in the system, for convenience. For convenience, I echoed. She gave me a look that wasn't pity, exactly, more like recognition. If you want, she said, I can print a list of lost items for the week, but I can't share guest details. Of course, I said quickly. No, I'm not asking you to do anything like that. I meant it. I wasn't here to drag an innocent person into my mess. Renee nodded, relieved. Then, because the world is cruel in small ways, she added, the couple's package includes a massage appointment in the spa downstairs. You might want to check there. Sometimes scarves get left in the lounge. My throat tightened again. Massage. Couples. Under her old name. Thanks, I said. You've been helpful. I turned away before my face betrayed me, and as I walked toward the hallway that led to the spa, I heard the elevator ding. I stopped at a decorative plant and pretended to read a brochure. In the brochure, smiling people held hands by a fireplace. I almost tore it in half. The elevator doors opened. Lila stepped out, laughing, and she wasn't alone. Graham Pierce was beside her. He carried a garment bag like he belonged to her schedule. He leaned close and murmured something that made her grin. For half a second, her eyes swept the lobby. If she looked right, she'd see me. If she saw me, everything would blow up in the wrong direction. I lowered my head, stepped behind the plant, and forced my breathing to stay normal. My hands felt too big. My skin felt loud. They walked past the desk. Renee's smile froze for a fraction of a second when she saw them. Not shock, not judgment, just the face of a woman adding one more thing to her private list of reasons she hated this job. Lila and Graham headed for the exit. As they passed, Lila's perfume hit me, warm, expensive, familiar. It made my stomach twist. She didn't see me. Outside, they climbed into Graham's black SUV. He started it with a smooth confidence like he'd never been told no. I stood in the lobby and watched them through the glass until the taillights disappeared. Then I walked back to the desk. Renee looked at me cautiously. I'm not asking you to break rules, I said, keeping my voice low. But can you tell me one thing? Just one. Her eyes held mine. Is she here often? I asked. Renee's mouth pressed tight. Then she said, often enough that you're not the first person to come in looking confused. That was the mundane truth, not a secret affair, a routine. I nodded. Okay. I left the hotel and sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel like I was trying to keep my life from sliding off the road. Then I did the thing I'd promised myself I wouldn't do again. I called Travis. This time he answered. Evan? His voice sounded older, deeper, like time had done its job. Yeah, I said. It's me. A pause. Is everything okay? No, I replied, but I'm trying to keep it from becoming a disaster. He sighed, a sound full of history. I told her not to use my name. My grip tightened. You knew, I said. I knew she was unhappy, he replied carefully. I didn't know she was doing this. I stared at the streetlight outside my windshield. The world kept moving. Cars passed. People lived. Can you meet me? I asked. When? He said. Tomorrow morning, I replied. Somewhere public, somewhere quiet. Another pause. Then, okay. I ended the call and sat there. Cliffhangers aren't only for novels. Sometimes they're just what happens when you finally stop lying to yourself. I opened my laptop at home and put a new line in my file. Saturday, 11:06 a.m. Hotel clerk recognizes her by old name. Saturday, 11:07 a.m. She's not even hiding. And then, because I wasn't ready to burn the house down yet, I scheduled something. Monday, 9 a.m. Vendor pitch. I will be in the room. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to remove her audience. Travis picked the diner. It was the kind of place with cracked booths and coffee that tasted like it was brewed in 1998 and never updated. I got there early and chose a table by the window. Old habit. Always know your exits. Always see who's coming. When Travis walked in, I recognized him and didn't. Same shoulders, same calm face, different eyes. He slid into the booth across from me and set his phone down like he expected me to throw mine. Lila called me last week, he said without preamble. I blinked. Why? Travis's mouth twitched. She said you'd been acting strange. She wanted to know if you were seeing someone. I almost choked on nothing. The audacity of it was so clean, it felt rehearsed. She's worried I'm cheating, I said. Travis nodded, not surprised. She's projecting. That's what she does. The waitress brought coffee. I watched the steam rise and thought about how quickly things cool when you stop touching them. I didn't come here to trade stories, I said. I came here to ask you a question, and I need an honest answer. Travis held my gaze. Okay. Did you ever help her cover something? I asked. When you were married. His jaw tightened. For a moment he looked like someone tasting a memory they hated. She didn't need help, he said. She needed a mirror, and I kept holding it up until she broke it. Translation? I asked. She lied, he said. About little things at first, then big things. She could turn any mistake into someone else's fault. Eventually, I realized I was living with a spokesperson, not a partner. That hurt more than it should have. Not because it was about me, because it sounded familiar. She always told me you were the problem, I said. Travis gave a humorless laugh. Of course she did. I sipped my coffee. My hands stayed steady. My voice did too. She's checking into a hotel under your last name, I said. Did you know that? Travis's eyes widened, just a fraction. No. He ran a hand over his mouth. That's reckless. It's calculated, I replied. She thinks it gives her a shield, like if she's not using my name, she's not cheating on me. Travis stared at the tabletop. Then he looked up, and something like anger flickered in him. Not for me. For himself, maybe. For ever loving her. She always wanted to keep options open, he said. Even when she said she was committed. I leaned forward. Do you have anything from your divorce that shows a pattern? Emails? Settlement discussions? Anything that proves she lies when it matters? Travis hesitated. Why? Because she's going to try to rewrite this, I said. She's going to make me the villain, unstable, controlling, paranoid. She's going to use her job to tell a story where she's the brave woman escaping a cold husband. Travis looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded once, slow. I have a file, he said. Texts, emails, the whole mess. Not illegal, not hacked, just what she sent me. I kept it because my attorney told me to. Can you share it? I asked. He exhaled. I can share what's relevant, but you should get your own attorney. I already did, I said, and it wasn't a lie. Not yet, but it was about to be true. Travis raised an eyebrow. I'm not here to blow up her life out of spite, I continued. I'm here to make sure she can't blow up mine. He nodded like he understood that language. We left the diner separately. I drove straight to a small law office 20 minutes from home, the kind with a plain sign and no dramatic lobby. A woman named Ms. Holloway met with me in a room that smelled like toner and paper. She listened while I explained the hotel charges, the old name, the vendor pitch, the pattern. When I finished, she said, You haven't done anything illegal. Keep it that way. I plan to, I replied. Good, she said. We can file for separation and request temporary orders, use of the home, finances, Whatever applies. The most important thing is documentation. I almost smiled. I'm good at documentation. She slid a folder toward me. Then start thinking like this is already in court, not to win a fight, to survive a narrative. Narrative. Lila's favorite weapon. On the way home, I stopped at a print shop and made copies of our last 6 months of statements, not because I needed them, because paper feels real when your life starts feeling like smoke. That night, Lila came home glowing. Not a happy glow, a victorious one. You should have seen the meeting, she said, tossing her coat on a chair. We're going to land something big. Something big, I echoed. She poured herself wine and didn't offer me any. I'm helping a local business with some PR, she said casually. It's good for the hospital, community outreach. I looked at the wine glass. Same red smear on the rim. Which business? I asked. She waved a hand. Just a wellness brand. It's not a big deal. Iron House. Graham Pierce. Her mouth couldn't even say his name in front of me. Sounds exciting, I said. She watched me, suspicious. Why are you being so calm? I held her gaze. Because I'm tired of arguing, I replied. If you're happy, that's what matters. Her eyes softened, just a little. That softness wasn't love. It was relief. Relief that she could keep lying without consequences. She walked past me toward the bedroom, then paused. Don't call Travis again, she said. I smiled, small. Why not? She turned, jaw tightening. Then she forced a laugh. Because it's pathetic. I nodded like I agreed. And when she disappeared down the hallway, I opened my laptop and wrote one more line. Saturday, 9:44 p.m. She gives an order like she owns the truth. Then I opened my calendar and scheduled something else. Sunday, 3 p.m. Private meeting with vendor representative. I will invite him without her knowledge, not to threaten, to verify. Because in my world, you don't accuse a system of failure. You run a test and watch what breaks. Sunday afternoon, I drove to Iron House. I didn't wear anything dramatic. Jeans, a plain jacket, the kind of outfit that says I'm here for a service call, not a showdown. The gym sat in a strip of newer buildings that tried hard to look expensive. Dark windows, metal signage, a slogan painted on the wall. Built, not given. Inside, it smelled like rubber mats and ambition. Music thumped from hidden speakers. People moved under bright lights like they were trying to outlift their own lives. At the front desk, a kid barely old enough to rent a car asked if I needed help. I have a meeting with Graham Pierce, I said. The kid's eyes widened a little. One sec. He called someone. A minute later, a door opened and Graham stepped out. In person, his smile was even smoother. He wore a fitted black shirt and a watch that cost more than my first car. He looked like a man who practiced being admired. Evan, he said, like my name was a product he'd already branded. Good to meet you. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, just a touch too long. A dominance handshake, a little performance. Thanks for making time, I replied. This is part of the due diligence process, nothing personal. Of course, he said. We're all about transparency here. He led me down a hallway into a small office with a glass wall. The office had motivational posters, dumbbells on a shelf like trophies, and a framed photo of Graham shaking hands with someone important looking. He closed the door. For a moment, the gym noise softened. It felt like stepping underwater. So, he said, sitting behind the desk, you're the guy who decides if we get the contract. I'm one of them, I replied, taking a chair. I don't decide. I assess risk. Graham laughed. Same thing, different language. I opened my folder, paper, not a laptop. Paper makes people nervous because it feels official. Let's start with your insurance, I said. Your coverage limits. He answered smoothly. He knew his lines. He'd rehearsed. Then I asked about subcontractors, about payroll processing, about incident reports, about prior disputes. His smile held, but his eyes tightened. Why are you asking about that? He said. Because the contract is with a hospital system, I replied. They're strict. We need vendors who don't create liability. Graham leaned back, watching me. His gaze slid over my face like he was searching for the crack. And your wife works there, right? He asked. There it was. He said it casual, but the word wife had a little edge. He wanted to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. Yes, I replied. She's in communications. Small world, he said, smiling wider. I kept my voice even. It is. A silence stretched. In that silence, I felt the shape of what he thought he was doing. He thought he was in control because he had something I wanted to protect. He didn't understand that I'd already stopped protecting it. I slid one paper across the desk. It was a simple printout. The hotel charges highlighted, dates and amounts. No accusations. Just data. Graham's eyes dropped to it, then flicked back up. What's this? He asked, but his voice had changed. The performance slipped. A question, I said. Do you have a corporate account at the Oakline Hotel? He stared. His mouth opened, then closed. I don't know what you're implying, he said. I'm not implying, I replied. I'm auditing. He leaned forward, anger tightening his face. You can't bring your personal life into business. I nodded. I agree. Then I slid a second page across. The vendor disclosure form required by the hospital network. Conflict of interest, personal relationships, gifts, influence. You filled this out yet? I asked. Graham's jaw worked. He looked toward the glass wall like he expected someone to be watching. No one was, just us. This is ridiculous, he said. Is it? I asked. Because if your relationship with my wife exists, and she's helping you pitch, and you don't disclose it, that's not just personal, that's ethics. Graham's nostrils flared. You don't have proof, he said. I held his gaze. You're right. I don't have proof of a relationship. I have proof of a pattern. He scoffed. Patterns are for people who don't have facts. I smiled, small. That's funny. That's exactly what I tell executives when they think numbers are optional. His smile vanished. What do you want? He asked. This was the moment movies go big. In movies, the husband threatens, punches, breaks something, becomes a cartoon. In real life, the most effective revenge is boring. I want the truth to be disclosed, I replied. I want the contract process clean, and I want you to understand something. Graham's eyes narrowed. What? I leaned in, keeping my voice low, not angry, just certain. You're not dealing with a guy who's going to storm into your gym and yell, I said. You're dealing with a guy who will ask questions in rooms that matter. Graham swallowed. I saw it. He tried to hide it behind a smirk. You're threatening me, he said. No, I replied. I'm informing you. I stood and gathered my papers. Then I added one more thing, because sometimes you need to place a seed. If you think my wife is your shield, I said, you're misreading the situation. She doesn't protect people. She uses them. Graham's face tightened. For the first time, he looked less like a billboard and more like a man who'd made a bad bet. I walked to the door. Evan, he said behind me. I turned. He forced his smile back on, but it didn't fit anymore. Let's keep this professional. I am, I replied. I left the office and walked through the gym. Music pounded, people lifted, someone laughed, life doing what it does, indifferent. In my car, I sat for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel. Then I opened my phone and sent a single email to the hospital compliance address Ms. Holloway had given me. Subject: potential conflict of interest concern, vendor relationship, no drama, no accusations, just a request for guidance with attached documentation of the vendor process timeline and my concern about disclosure requirements. I didn't mention names, yet. I hit send, and in that quiet click, I felt the pivot. The moment where the story stopped being about what they did to me and started being about what they'd do to themselves when the lights turned on. That night, Lila came home and kissed me like she was rewarding a pet. "Big day tomorrow," she said. "You'll be proud of me." I looked at her and wondered how long a person can live inside a lie before it becomes their skin. "I already am," I replied. She smiled, satisfied, and went to bed. I stayed up and printed one more folder, not for revenge, for procedure, because the easiest way to destroy someone who lives by image is to make their image enter a room with rules. Monday arrived with a hard, clean sky, like the day had already chosen a side. Lila left early, dressed like a headline. At the door, she said, "Don't be weird today. This matters." "I'll be professional," I replied. At 8:45, I checked in at the hospital admin building and walked to the vendor room with my badge visible and my face neutral. That's the trick. If you look like you belong, people stop asking why. Graham Pierce sat at the end of the Iron House table, confident in a way that only works when no one turns the lights on. Lila stood up front with a clipboard, greeting people. When she saw me, her smile stuttered. "You're here?" she said, too bright. "You said it mattered," I replied. "I'm supporting you." Her jaw tightened. "Just sit. Don't talk." I sat. 2 vendors pitched first. Slides, metrics, promises. Everyone nodded like trained birds. Then Graham stood, clicked his remote, and filled the screen with glossy photos and big, friendly numbers. "We don't just train bodies," he said. "We build culture." Lila watched him like he was her best work. He reached a slide titled Compliance and Ethics and smiled wider. "We understand healthcare standards." That was my moment. I raised my hand. The CFO looked my way. "Yes?" I kept my voice even. "Have all conflict of interest disclosures been submitted for this vendor relationship?" A small silence, sharp as a pin. Lila laughed lightly. "Evan, that's not—" The compliance officer at the far end lifted her head, already reading from her laptop. "No, we have not received a complete disclosure." Graham's smile flickered. His eyes snapped to Lila. The CFO leaned forward. "Mr. Pierce, is there a personal relationship with any hospital employee involved in this process?" Graham opened his mouth, then tried to power through. "Absolutely not." The compliance officer didn't blink. "We're pausing this review pending investigation." Lila turned toward me, eyes wild. "What are you doing?" I leaned close and kept it quiet. "Fixing the mistake." Graham pushed his chair back. "This is personal." "Mr. Pierce," the CFO cut in, flat. "Please step outside with compliance." Graham stood, stiff, and walked out. His billboard confidence stayed behind on the chair. Lila shot up too, knocking her clipboard down. Papers slid across the floor like her last bit of control. "I can explain," she said, voice shaking. "My husband, he's jealous. He's been unstable." The compliance officer looked straight at her. "Ms. Carter, we'll speak with you as well." Hearing her old name out loud was like watching her get slapped by paperwork. I left before the room could turn me into a spectacle. Outside, cold air hit my face and I felt something open up in my chest. Space. My phone buzzed. "Ms. Holloway. Temporary orders filed, funds secured." Then another message. "Travis. Don't let her rewrite you." I drove home and waited. Lila came in later with her heels in her hand, mascara smudged, hair wrecked by a day that didn't care about her brand. "You set me up," she said. "I documented," I replied, sliding a folder across the table. She flipped it open, confident again for half a second, until she saw what was inside. A printed email from her hospital account, subject line, Oakline, use Carter, not Evan's name. A draft statement painting me as controlling. The separation petition, stamped filed. Her face drained, then hardened. "How did you get that?" she whispered. You left your work laptop open, I said. On our counter. She tried to stand taller. People will believe me. I know how to make you look. I already forwarded your draft to compliance, I said, along with the parts where you admit you were managing the story. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I stood. You're out by Friday. She stared like she'd never heard the word no before. The doorbell rang. I opened the door and found Renee from the hotel in a winter coat, holding a small paper bag. I'm sorry, she said softly. You asked about a scarf. We found it in the spa lounge. I thought you should have it. Behind her, in my driveway, a black SUV idled. Graham sat inside, staring forward, hands locked on the wheel, waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Lila stepped into the hall, saw the bag, saw the SUV, and made a sound like her lungs forgot how to work. Renee's eyes met mine, tired, steady. Some mistakes aren't loud, she said. They're just repeated. Thank you, I said, and took the bag. I closed the door. Outside, the SUV eased away, tires whispering on wet pavement. Lila sank to the floor like the house had finally decided to stop holding her up. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. You don't get to keep us both, I said. You picked the routine. I picked reality. I turned off the buzzing kitchen light and listened to the silence settle. The lock clicked, and that sound was my answer. Done.